Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Soul Goals. My name is Dawn, and beside me, we don't have the delightful Dixie today.
Mm-hmm.
No, we have Pat, my husband, Pat Cunningham, otherwise known as PC.
Mm-hmm.
He is in the building, and I mean, he's literally in the building, his office, his building. Yeah. So
Yeah.
all the way from, what did you say earlier?
100 feet.
100 feet away.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. As you're wrapping up your workday,
Yep.
Dixie is taking another week off with some family things she's taking care of. And so I felt like this would be a wonderful challenge for you to take part in just because it's something you already do on the regular. And the name of this episode is called Have the Talk. And have the talk means that for a minimum of 5 different times this past week, we were to have random conversations with random people out in public. Kind of have to pick your battles, I guess, and kind of choose wisely. But I thought this would be a really wonderful week for you to talk about what this benefit is in terms of talking to people randomly, reaching out to folks in that capacity, because it's something that since I've known you, you do literally all the time anyway. So I feel like you can speak pretty confidently on the benefits of reaching out to somebody and having that talk, having a conversation just randomly with someone that you may not know how that affects them, right? And
Yep.
what that does for you as well as the other person. So give me the lowdown. Is that something that you've always been pretty comfortable doing, is talking to people just that you don't know? Or is it something that you kind of had to work that muscle and figure out, okay, I'm going to do this?
I don't know when I really started doing it. I just it kind of developed as I got older, and
Oh, yeah.
and I don't have a lot of problems talking to people. I mean, in the job I've got, I talk to people all the time.
Mhm.
So, and I read people pretty well, and I just, but I mean, I think we're like really disconnected now. So I think even though this started like before the cell phones and the stuff came along and social media, um, I started doing that way before then. And I think and I guess what I get out of it is just connecting with people on just like a 5 minute basis. Sometimes it's less than that. And it's not really a connection. I think it's just interacting, and we don't
Yeah.
do a lot of that. And I think some people are and some people get a great conversation out of,
Yeah.
and it can be very, very random about what you're buying. It can be, it can be about somebody who just left. It can be lots of stuff like that. It just depends, So, um, but I guess just being friendly. It's kind of a Southern thing too. I mean,
Oh,
it
true.
really is. It's kind of where I grew up, and the way I grew up. People are very interpersonal, I guess,
Mhm.
and people let you over in traffic, and you put your hand up and wave, and I still do that, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to stop doing that. I did that twice today,
Yeah.
and you worry about they think you're shooting them a bird or something. They're going to shoot you now, and the way things are, but
Right.
you hope that's not the case, So,
Sadly, that's kind of where we've gotten to, right? I
right,
mean,
yeah,
but I like what you said about interacting. I think that's something that even more on the basis, like the basis for this podcast is talking about connectivity and knowing that you are not alone and knowing that other people struggle with things just like you might. And I really feel like having conversations with people randomly is a way for us um to have that interaction, like you said, and have that connection that you don't know how you may be benefiting someone. I mean, I know there's been times in the past where I've been in a real curmudgeon-y mood and I've gone to the store and someone has looked at me and just said something just arbitrary, but it was very kind. And it kind of did a little bit of a snap to kind of get me out of that cruddy headspace, if you will, just for a
mm-hmm.
little bit. And I think too, the old adage of like, just being kind to people because you just don't know the shoes that they're walking in. I think that's a really big piece and there may be people that don't have individuals at home talking to them. So isn't that great that they can go out and they have somebody that engages with them like that? So
Well, and I think you would hope that if you do that for somebody like that who doesn't have people to engage, and maybe because of that, either their skills are not good, or their skills are not good at that, or they just don't reach out like that. So maybe if you do, I mean, maybe it'll it'll get them to step out of their comfort zone and they'll do that to somebody else,
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
so it's always been in your comfort zone to talk, right?
always. Never had a
You don't
problem.
have a problem with it.
No, never.
How do you think it's benefited you? Like when people do that to you?
I don't know. Um, I mean, I like talking to people. I like hearing their stories.
Yeah.
I like the um, just the interaction of that and like I said, you may never see that person again. Likely it's
Mhm.
not you won't see that person again. They're gonna um, and you wonder. They say that everybody that you run into has an effect on you somehow. That's an old saying that
Yeah.
everybody you come into contact with has some effect, however minimal or minuscule that can be, but they do. So
Yeah.
I don't know how that all works out in the whole grand scheme of universe thing, but I know it does. And
Yeah.
and maybe they don't think about it right away, but they might go home and think about it, or when they're laying in the sack getting ready to go to sleep, they do. Because I do that all the time. I think about the day's events and how I could have
Right.
done things differently, or how I should have done something better, or something like that. So
How important do you think it is for us to have those conversations with people? I mean, or I should say, do you think there's importance on doing that?
some more than others. What I
Okay.
mean, one of my favorites of all that is vets.
Oh,
The
yeah.
guys that I engage a lot of guys who are wearing a hat, especially the Vietnam guys, because I feel for those guys a lot.
Yeah.
I think they were given a really raw deal by the country, and I think they wear those hats now because there's a sense of pride of what they went through, and a sense
Yeah.
of brotherhood of what they went through that was different than the World War II guys, or even the Korean War guys, who really didn't get a lot of accolades either, but people weren't calling them baby killers and throwing blood on them. The country
Mhm.
wasn't against them when they came home and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But almost every vet I run into, because I'm the son of a vet. I had 5 uncles who fought in the war. I had a cousin in Vietnam. I had another uncle that was in Korea.
Mhm.
So I think that I'm really comfortable around them. And those guys, I try and make their stories comfortable. I never ask them about their experience. That the Vietnam guys, I asked them. I said, what did you do in Vietnam? And usually they'll tell me a lot. I was a helicopter mechanic. I was an infantryman. And I just ask them. I ask them the years, and
Mhm.
90% of the time they're 67, 68, 68, 69, which was really, really rough times in Vietnam. And
Yeah.
and I just let them. I was like, I just tell them. I say it was nasty business, and they'll say, yeah, it was. And if they don't, most of the time they'll volunteer conversations. And I truly believe that vets that have post traumatic stress, even if these guys who are closing on 75 and 80 years old, I think them talking about it is a way to process it from
Right.
even that age.
Right.
And I never ask them about combat experience. If they want to share that with me, they can. They never do, and that's
Mhm.
fine. But I ask them a lot about where they trained, where they were at
Mhm.
in country and stuff like that, and when they got home and what that was like. And many of them open up. One in particular that I'm very, very close to is Eddie Delgado, um, and I met him. That's a long story, but he told me about his whole experience in Vietnam, and I think it was a good way for him to process it, and I think other people process things like that too.
Yeah,
So
even in the smallest conversations and even in the smallest interactions. I
true.
mean, you just
Yep.
don't know how you're affecting people. And I think too that you're speaking about veterans, like I think even for the overall reaching umbrella that we're talking about and just talking with people in general, it just shows care and it shows value to them as a person when you
Well,
have those
thank you.
conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I think like too, you had said at one point about kind of a disconnected society that we're in the middle of right now because
Mm-hmm.
of cell phones, because of social media, because of a lot of different elements along the way. I think COVID may have created some stuff that is still kind of sticking around, some good, some bad, it's all the things. But I think too that when you disconnect and stay away from those conversations, that it's really hard to engage and, like you said, process life in general. And even the smallest blurb of a sentence can make such a profound impact on people when it's done from that place of care and that place of value. And it's something that we all can do. Like, and it doesn't have to be monumental. And you know what? Another thing, it doesn't have to be profound either. Like, I have actually had people say that really meant something when you said X, Y, or Z to me. And I didn't think anything about it because
Mm-hmm.
I was just, well, we're sitting here together in the waiting room having a conversation. We're both in the same boat together. Why don't we why don't we talk?
Right. Well, and good conversations are had in shared experiences. And even though you're in
Mhm.
a shared experience, standing in the line or something going on, I mean, you've got time. I do notice um, that we're talking about social media and the phone thing. I
Mhm.
do notice that striking up a conversation with someone under 30 is harder than it is people over 30. I
Oh,
do notice
interesting.
that.
Okay.
They will, but there is a guarded sense. Of course, they're looking at their phone. I mean, they're
Right.
like doing this in line because they can't get away from it. But if you bring up a conversation about something, the shirt they got on, they're wearing it. So you go to UT, there's this look of, are you talking to me? And
Oh, like
there's
almost
almost a
surprised.
hesitation
Yeah.
before they answer. And they'll say, yeah. And then it's like they're waiting for you to be a creep, you
Oh,
know, because
yeah.
the social media
Yeah.
stuff and the Instagram and all that stuff is full of TikTok, full of a bunch of weird interactions.
Yeah.
And they almost wait, and you're like, I, I I got a good friend that went there. I got a good friend whose daughter's there. I mean,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And then they'll start. You can see them start lightening up. And the funny thing about it is, they start engaging, and it's almost like they enjoy it at that point. It's like something they don't do on a
Mhm.
regular or with a stranger.
Well, it's just maybe it's uncomfortable or unusual for them
Maybe,
maybe,
yeah,
but or it's just not in like, they've not been privy to having those kind of conversations because of the generation that they're in, because of the tools that have been, placed in their life,
true,
basically.
yep.
So, how hard did that bringing back to social media, how hard is it, do you think, for people to have those face-to-face interactions? Like you talked about, like the 30 and under generation that has grown up, like knows no other way. Like that's what they were born into. How difficult do you think it is for them to make a change, to do something a little bit more socially interactive? And do you feel like I mean, obviously, I'm just going to, my 2 cents is that I feel like it's beneficial to have those face to face conversations because that's really what bonds us as a community and as people in general. But how challenging do you think it is? Like, I know you talked about when you talk to them, there's almost a hesitation. Do you think that it's something that is hard for them to figure out? Or do you think that if they tried it, like you said, they might enjoy it?
I, well, some of it I think is their age.
Okay.
I mean, when you're young like that, you don't have the life experiences and the comfort level where you lose a lot of your
Mhm.
vanity. As life
Yeah.
goes on, and you get embarrassed by stuff that happens and things.
Yeah.
And um, like I was talking about me, I've always been okay with but talking with people, but as I've gotten older, it's a lot more comfortable. And
Yeah.
I think as you age, you can read people better. Now it does concern me that with the phones, they're not learning that skill.
Mm.
They're not learning that being able to read where someone is uncomfortable with what you're talking about, or they may not want to.
Yeah.
But that intuitive side of conversation maybe that's lacking.
Yeah.
Um, but I've noticed this in our oldest daughter. I've noticed that as she's gotten older, she has gotten to where she's more engaging and
Mhm.
less about the phone. And I think that after a while, even just maybe human nature or something, they miss that interaction.
Right.
But I know they struggle with things, and I know they have. It's I don't know how it's going to play out because it'll be long after I'm dead and gone. But that I don't know how they'll be when they're our age,
Right.
and I think
Yeah.
you might be seeing a societal shift, and I worry that there's because there's not a good interaction between them at a young age and in college, and it's
Mhm.
still all about the phones. It has such a great side to it.
Yeah, yeah. I
Organizational.
mean,
You know where your friends are, and they
mhm.
can watch and take care of each other and stuff like that. But it also it comes with a price, and I think it's the interaction in a food line is one of them.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a really great point. The interaction, which is part of the reason of the disconnect, and really being able to have that face-to-face valuable conversation with another person, being uncomfortable with it because they're not, it's just not something that they're used to. It's not
Yeah.
something that they've grown up with. It's not something that they've been around. I think that's the biggest thing. So
Yep. Yep. I
yeah,
agree.
well, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your experience and let you know that your dogs have just come back in the house from being
Whoa.
outside. Yeah, because it's a
Yeah.
pretty warm day. So
Hmm.
yeah, they're
Okay.
wanting to interact. They're probably wanting to have you face to face here in a second, just
Well,
like
we should
you
get
know.
ready. I should hurry in then. So,
You should hurry in and then go throw a ball for them and have that interaction with them.
All
Absolutely.
right.
I'm sure they would love that. So
All right.
thank you so much for being here. And until next time, my name is Dawn with my guest for the week, my hubby, Patrico PC. Yeah, peace out. We'll see you next time.